For a lot of NPCs, it's easy to give them traits that can make your players interested. Maybe they talk weird, they could have a neat outfit, or maybe even a cool weapon. But that doesn't build anticipation. That doesn't build wonder or dread at who this is. No, if you want that emotional investment, then show another part of their life before your players even know their name. Here's an example of one such NPC and the process used to build that NPC and create that exact wild investment. Hiya! I'm Ink, they, them pronouns, and welcome to the Nook. Here I'm going to make an NPC for tabletop RPGs that you can use for your campaigns. However, I have 3 major twists this time to show that you at home can do this. First, the NPC is just going to be a mysterious person with a wide smile and wearing a cloak. We're not even going to give gender indicators. That's the whole visual description and the whole definition that we can give before we go into the second twist. Second twist, we're going to define the NPC through specifically their house. This means that every trait we give has to trace back to the house in some way, whether logically, thematically, or some other third thing. And the third twist, we're using random splotches as our visual starting point. Now, with the rules out of the way, let's let the creation commence. Beginning with the concept, we already have a strong start using our twists. This is a character that looks plain, but their house is so wild and out there that players don't have any choice but to be interested. So you can see my start here. The random splotches and a little bit of white ink build this kind of strange, weird shape. It's indistinct, but one thing is clear. It's some kind of building towering overhead with few supports and really a slapdash kind of style. Though one of the chatters from my stream, random commenter, said 2 words that made this idea real, that made this become a video-worthy concept. Dark Seuss. And now we have the perfect plan for a guy who lives in a Dr. Seuss-inspired dark fantasy tower. And as I switch to the digital refinement of the illustration, let's move on to the lore. Here we're faced with one major question. Who the heck would live in this wild, messy, impractical, and ultimately unstable house? Like, how in the world could we pay off the anticipation that we're building with this, well, building? Well, let's start off with an archetype that can be described in the same ways. Paint some broad strokes that we can cut into to define our character later on. But again, we come back to that question. What kind of character archetype would fit the words wild, messy, impractical, and ultimately unstable? Well, how about a wizard? A half-mad mage would fit perfectly into this house. Now to carve into that central concept to define our character. One of the biggest parts of the wizard is their specialization, their domain. Well, what would fit this building? It makes no sense spatially, and that's where we get our answer. Space! This is a space mage who warped their wizard tower, filled it with non-Euclidean geometry and nonsensical layouts that would fit quite well with what we see here. Now, how do they use their magic? This mage must have a great deal of power if they're able to make this house. So let's say that they can reach across dimensions and sell goods back and forth. This is why players would actually encounter the wizard, as a merchant who can get items nobody else can. Maybe the players need to attain a rare and powerful artifact for a quest, or they want an upgrade to their gear. Whatever the reason they need will lead them to this wizard's doorstep. However, when the player characters walk up to the tower, they don't see any legendary merchant just sitting in a store. No, all they see is a tower that looks like it was built from a child's dream or nightmare. This is where we build that anticipation, where we build that feeling of who the heck could be a resident of this place? Now, let's give an example of how you can pay it off as we go the last big trait for this character. The party goes inside the tower and encounters the mage, just returned from an expedition to another world. The mage spreads their haul out in front of the players, treasures beyond belief alongside junk that few would ever care for. And here's where we assign that last big defining trait. This wizard is no ordinary merchant. They list no prices, only the items' names. And in a sing-song delivery, they say, "Oh, no, you don't know. Gold dust does nothing but trickle. Instead, I like how words wriggle. So play, my friends, and match the ends, or you'll get naught but a sniggle." And that gives us the final big wrinkle. This merchant mage doesn't trade with coin. Instead, we pull one last time on the Susian inspiration. This wizard barters with rhymes. Each item sold must be paid for by its rhyming pair. If the players try to use slant rhymes, they must use 2 to 5 items to trade for one. Of course, depending on how bad the slant is, and of course, according to your judgment. Oh, and one last thing with that. The merchant will freely give sniggles, which is just a word for laughing at the players. And please feel free to use it. Oh my gosh, that would be hilarious. Just, "Oh yes, let me get our free sniggle." Okay. All right, now we have a beautiful payoff. The wizard who lives in this crime against architecture isn't actually like a terrifying and intimidating master of deals. Instead, it's a silly old coot who just loves word games and has a lot of cool stuff. All of a sudden now, the players are in a puzzle where they have to match up their items to what they want, turning shopping into an actual fun encounter rather than just a waste of time and so much math. And of course, these players are negotiating with the half-mad merchant mage who sells items with not only their names in this dimension, but their original names from their own dimension. So have fun doing whatever you wish, whatever deals, and especially when popping in various gibberish or references. Now, to lay this lore out as a defined character, let's pull out a creature card and start filling it in. First off will be the name. As with all wizards, the best names come from drugs. Sorry, the best names come from drug names. So let's go with that. Zyvox, Aladimubab, Gabapenidin, Carbidopa levodopa. Wait, actually that's kind of funny. Carbidopa levodopa is a drug to treat Parkinson's and it rhymes with itself. So this is the mage merchant Carbidopa levodopa. And of course, the players must say the entire name Carbidopa levodopa in order to get them to respond. Next are the abilities. This will help illustrate what Carbidopa levodopa can do, and of course, they all must rhyme. First off is the dimensional travel. So how can we get a rhyming pair of words that describes moving from one dimension to another? Dimension distension is a nice pair of words, and I love the alliteration. But stretching dimensions isn't right. Plane might be better, like plane obtain may work. Oh, wait a minute, I got it. Plane transmembrane obtain. It allows Carbidopa levodopa to obtain objects by reaching across the planar membranes. Perfect. This is just as janky as I'd hoped it would be. All right, next, let's go for the warping that allows the tower to exist. And we actually already have the perfect words for it. Dimension distension. But that won't be all. Let's add one more word to this alliterative rhyme. Dimension declension distension. To distend means to enlarge from internal pressure or overstretch from said internal pressure. Declension is not only a linguistic term, but also a synonym for deterioration, to fall apart. And of course, we already know what dimension means. So now we got an ability perfect for a half-mad mage. Finally, let's give an offensive ability, just in case the players try to pull a fast one. Let's go for a rhyme with shatter, because shatter anything tends to do a lot. Shatter matter? No, wait. Nuclear fission, anyone? No, let's go for something funnier. Oh, shatter subject matter. So this is a spell that can shatter something that is being talked about, or I suppose someone that is being talked about. All right, now that we have the abilities, let's move on to the stats. We'll be using the D&D 5th edition stat spread, but the numbers will refer to the modifiers instead of the stats themselves. Strength. When you haul stuff across dimensional barriers, you'd better have at least a little bit of bulk. 1. Constitution. Wizards are known for many things. Their health total is absolutely one of them. Boy, is it small. -2. Dexterity. Nothing super special here, but it does take some steady hands to make such nice signs. 1. Intelligence. If you want to understand the formulae that go into warping your tower to this degree, you gotta have a real wrinkly brain. 5. Wisdom. We've already been describing this wizard as pretty kooky. -1. Charisma. You gotta admit, it's fun being around someone this wild, and the fact that they take such glee in the word games is quite charming. 2. And finally, we have the core phrases. These are a set of statements or questions that help characterize this NPC and guide DMs on how to play them in a unique and interesting way. Words are my favorite game. The main motivation for this wizard at this point is playing word games with others. That's the entire point behind the unique prices of their wares. Always be on the hunt. There are plenty of fun items everywhere. You just have to keep your eyes open, and this wizard is always ready to find something new. Meet your customers wherever they are. Here we come to the best part of Carbidopa Levodopa. Because they're a space mage, they can kind of pop up anywhere. So why not have them set up in a dangerous floor of a dungeon? They know that some kind of adventuring party has to be nearby. Overall, it's possible to make interesting characters through the traditional methods, but now you can see a new way to build that interest and add in anticipation. Make something emblematic of the character for players to encounter first. Then think about who would own, use, or live in it. And even if you try this process out and don't like it, you now at least have one character you can pull out and use to make a wild shopping session. Now, if this NPC seems cool and you'll want to see more like it, trade your bike for a like and a bribe for a subscribe. I also have another video where we remix the classic D&D Mimic with a delicious in-dungeon twist. Link to that right now. And with that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. Whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye!